Okay. Let's see if we've made the interwebs this morning. Looks like we're live, Mark. Welcome once again. Nice afternoon for you there, as always. Morning for me, and it's the 1st of June, so 1st of winter, hence the sweater this morning, keeping myself warm. And you've got the t-shirt on. Nearly summer there.
Yeah, nice today. This is a holiday for us here today. This was Memorial Day.
That's right. I've been actually seeing a lot of posts around Memorial Day, and yeah, it's interesting to think that people have sacrificed so much. I've never, as I think we've talked about once before, that I've never had a big affiliation with the Army or anything like that until I'd worked with Navy SEALs a few years ago, and now have a deep respect. So when I see those memorial posts and even Anzac Day posts here and that sort of thing, it does really hit home for me. I'm not sure. Have you had anyone like in your family or relations or anyone in the Army or anything like that? Or served?
Oh yes, my father served, and all my uncles served.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredible thing to think you would go and face someone shooting at you and that sort of thing. It's
what's really incredible, James, is I have my uncle's diaries from when they were in World War II.
Oh wow.
And to read what they're talking about. I had one uncle that was in Burma, which is now, I guess, Myanmar, and they would fly the Burma hump into China and supply the Chinese against the Japanese. And I was reading one where they were saying, terrible, terrible day today, fully loaded B-17, crashed on takeoff, everyone killed, rained this afternoon.
Quite the comparison.
And it was like in the next sentence, and it rained again this afternoon.
Boy, oh boy. When life is that kind of, trying to look for the right word there, but
the reality of
mortality. When you're so comfortable in your daily life that you can comment on people being killed and it raining in the same sentence.
Yeah. And I think that those that have experienced battle, and there is an acknowledgement of mortality. It's not someday I'm going to die. It's I could die in an hour. I could die in a minute. I mean, a bomb could drop, a mortar could drop, a sniper could shoot, and I'd be instantly gone. I was 10 seconds here, and the next 10 seconds you're gone. So I think that when you live that life and you experience that life for any period of time, it's no wonder that there are so many veterans that have PTSD and post-traumatic stress, and they never used to talk about it, but I know that many of my friends' parents who had been in the war and had been in the islands in the Pacific when they were fighting the Japanese, like Iwo Jima and Marshall Islands and things like that. It was horrible, horrible fighting, very, very grim. And they could not talk about it in their life. Their entire life, they couldn't talk about their experience at all. It was just so traumatic.
It's interesting. My dad served in the Yugoslav army, like it's part of normal service over there. I'm not sure if they saw any conflict. I don't think so. But again, they don't really talk about it. It's like it was done. It was part of the deal, and it's interesting. But
and I look at the pictures of these young soldiers, and many of them are 17, 18, 19 years old. They look like they're in high school, and many of them were. They graduated from high school, and the next day they were on a bus to, the induction center.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a podcast called ABC Conversations, and it has, it's an Australian podcast and has a lot of stories and, just different people's stories. Mm-hmm. And I've heard a lot of war stories and that sort of thing in that, and, of kids not of age, but of lying about their age so that they could go to war.
Mhm.
You know, it's like you imagine the kids of today.
No, they couldn't.
We should probably get off that. We should probably get off that topic before we go down a path that we can't stop ourselves from. But let's bring it back to the topic for today, which is that's the way we've always done things. We were having a conversation before we went live, about that's the way we've always done things, and we were specifically talking about money, and the way that businesses operate on a that's the way we've always done things kind of approach to their numbers. Now, we've talked plenty of times before about profit first. We're big fans of it. And, it really lends itself to talking about profit first in this conversation. So I'll open it up for you, Mark, just to kind of kick us off there. And maybe tell us about, your experiences over the last couple of weeks. We were having a discussion about that.
Yeah, so this is really, I think, not only timely, but it's crucial for every business. I don't care whether it's just a startup or whether you're 10 million or 50 million or 100 million or even more. More than 100 million, there's better tools because you have better financial knowledge available to you. But even up to 50 million, I've seen businesses that rely, they do not understand the difference between cash flow and profit. You can have tremendous cash flow and make no money at all.
Yep.
And you can have tremendous profit and be out of cash.
Yep.
And this relationship between cash flow and profitability is the hidden determinant whether a business is able to survive a disruption like COVID. And the conversation that we were having was, in the last 2 weeks, I have been unbelievably busy. I mean, literally to the point where I had one day 12 minutes open over a 10-hour period. And I got zoomed out that day. But out of this, so many businesses are coming forward and sharing financial information. And the thing that is so common is they've heard about profit first and they're trying to make it work, but they don't understand how to make it work. So please help us understand. So I'll have an initial exploration with them. And what's a very common situation is that when business has momentum, which means there's orders coming in and they're being fulfilled and you're getting paid for them, and then you're paying your bills and more orders are coming in, there's a cyclical cash flow. It's kind of like musical chairs. And you're taking chairs away and you're sitting down and you're putting chairs back and you're going around and around, and you might end up short a little bit one month, but then the next month you pick it up and it seems everything seems fine until you have a disruption and the music stops. And when the music stops and all the chairs are gone, there's no place to go. The cash flow catches up.
Yeah.
And you begin to realize, I don't have enough money to pay my bills and I have no sales to generate the cash flow. And then when you start looking at the work that you're doing, you start thinking about what is the marginal value of the work that I'm doing, which is how much of the work that I'm doing is above my expenses to pay my bills, to be able to pay my overhead.
Yep.
And too many businesses have too many employees that are not contributing or contributing at a very, very low efficiency level. They may not even be contributing. They may be doing the same job over and over, but it's not a job that's needed. But they've been there for so many years that management doesn't know how to eliminate their role.
Yeah,
And
that's the way we've always done things, and people fall into I wouldn't say into a rut, but into a complacency and a comfort zone of, okay, this is what we've always done. We're comfortable, but our comfort is actually causing us pain.
yeah, so just imagine this. We've got viewers all over, but I'm going to use the example of cricket and football. So imagine that you are the world champion cricket team, and you're winning and winning and winning, and you're the perennial champions. They're undisputed champions. You win more over a long period, and now imagine that you are a high school, or what do they call high school in Australia?
Yeah, high school and college.
So imagine that you're a championship high school team, but you're a championship football team, and you're given an opportunity to play against the champion cricket team, that's professional champion cricket team. What do you think your chances of winning are?
Well, they shouldn't be many, it shouldn't be much at all.
And zero, right? As close to zero as you can get, because these are absolute professionals. They know the game, and not only are they professionals, but they're the top of their game. Now imagine that there's some disruption, and all the sporting events are called off, and when they come back for the agreed upon match, they come back to the stadium and they find that it's been reconfigured to play football instead of cricket. Now what do you think your chances of beating the cricket team are?
Pretty damn good.
Exactly, because you're a championship high school team, and the cricket players don't know the rules. They don't know the positions. They don't know the strategies. They don't know the duration. I mean, cricket is the kind of game like baseball, where you come in waves. You play and then you go have a resting period. In football, you're running forever, right?
Yeah.
And so this is kind of what's happened with COVID. Is everybody went away doing what they were doing. The economy was on fire. Everything was great. And when they came back, guess what? The rules have all changed.
Yeah.
And now they're trying to figure out what's happened to the supply chain, what's happened to prices, what's happened to cash flow, what's happened to labor, and everything that was certain is now a continuation of uncertain.
Yeah, everything's being reinvented on the fly. I'm kind of finding that here. It's interesting though, just, we were talking before we went live, and we were talking about how larger companies still aren't able, like, even though they've got big resources and team and all that sort of stuff, and they're still not able to pull profit out, they're still not able to manage their cash flow. Like, it's still a problem for a lot of even larger companies, but smaller companies and smaller businesses that, I guess, kind of in that $1 to $10 million range. I find it amazing how many people are in that range, but don't have anything behind them. Like, they're not they're not actually paying themselves first. And it's like a rule that we learn early on in life, and yet we keep breaking that rule. Why do you think that is? Like really, it's a very simple rule, and we get taught it very early to save, 20% or 10% or 50% or whatever it might be you grow up with. But why is it that one rule people don't pay themselves?
Because it comes down to risk. And risk is that when you're in a situation where you're turning the cash cycle all the time, risk is, the focus is not on the cash flow with the focus that it needs to be. So it's diminished focus, diminished attention. So to use another analogy, imagine that your business cycle is like the circus trapeze, and you're on the bar and you're swinging, and now it comes time for you to let go of the bar and do a backflip and grab onto the hands of your partner on the other side. And oh, by the way, there's no net now. And this is what's happening to the small companies, is there's no net. The big companies can play the game, but there's a net for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
They've got bigger resources. They've got banking relationships. They've got other ways of dealing with things. So they can afford to take the risk without the consequence. With the smaller companies, there is no net. So if you miss, your timing is off, you don't make a good connection, somebody's going to get hurt or worse.
Yeah. The thing that I've found though over the years is the more you pay yourself, like if you make it a practice to pay yourself, there's always enough money. It's like that law of time. Is it Parkinson's? You know,
Yeah.
it's similar to that, in that if you leave all your money in your company and you don't pay yourself, there's never enough to pay yourself. But if you actually take the money from your company and pay yourself, there's always enough to pay yourself. It's a very odd thing, and
you accommodate it. You design for accommodation.
Yeah.
And this is the big fallacy. You know, when I ran my company, and I still run my company this way, is that if we are short of cash, I will lend the company money.
Yep.
And it creates an obligation back to me, just like it was a banking obligation. And this is done for tax purposes.
Yep.
And it causes you to look at cash flow in a different way. And I think the reason that we look at cash flow in a positive way is that we're not afraid of the numbers. And what I find so often is business owners, particularly small business owners, are really good at what they do. Water skiing or carpentry or tile or coaching or whatever it is, they're really good at that, but they're not good with the numbers, and they're not good with sales and marketing.
It's interesting. Yeah. And yeah, a lot of people, I think, yeah, they say, okay, I'm good at business. I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm a great plumber. I'm great at plumbing, and I've got a few clients, but they don't realize that they have to actually go and learn the skill of numbers. And maybe they're just ignoring it because they don't think, oh, you know, I'm a plumber, I don't really need to learn that. But if they simply learnt that skill, you know, just the one skill, like every time I get a new client, I make them read Profit First, I make them implement it. And I said, just learn that skill and implement it as a system in your business. Don't think about it as something completely different. It's like you're not becoming an accountant. You're just implementing a system in your business. And I think a lot of people think of it like, oh my God, I've got to become an accountant. I don't know finance. I didn't do accounting at school. I wasn't very good at math. Instead of just saying, okay, I need to implement a simple money system in my business.
So those are all labels. I'm not good. I'm not good. I'm not good. It's the story you're telling it, right? Profit First, the reason Profit First works is because it is a behavioral change. You're forcing yourself to change.
Yeah.
And the biggest, one of the biggest challenges that I find with new companies that are trying to implement Profit First is that they look at this and say, well, I can't take 10% out for profit. And I say, so don't. I can't pay myself, the salary. So my response is, so don't. Pay yourself 1%. Take your profit at 1%. If your business can't support 1 cent out of a dollar, and they can't support your wage at 1 cent out of a dollar, you don't have a business, you have a hobby.
Well, right? And you've got a pretty poor one at that.
Exactly. And so what happens is they begin to realize that there's money left over because now they're looking at it. And I saw a great quote. I should have written down who the source was. I'll have to go back and look it up because it was not my quote. But the quote was, anything that's unmeasured is an underperforming. And I thought, man, does that nail it? Yeah. Because as soon as you start looking at something and you start questioning what's going on and you're starting to measure it, you're going to get better. And so the combination of just measuring it for the first time and getting onto a regular schedule, not twice a month, but once a week. Every Friday, you take 1 cent out of the revenue for the week. Every Friday, you take 1 cent out of the revenue for your paycheck. And it may only be $50 or it may only be $20, but it doesn't matter because pretty soon it's going to be 2,000 before you even know it, because you're beginning to see how it works. That's the other observation about why it works for so many people is to make adjustments once every 3 months. So commit yourself to a quarter and run it religiously at that level and that frequency for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then up it a couple of points on both sides and run it for another 3 months. And by the time you get into the third quarter, you're going to be seeing that it is possible, that you can make this happen, that you have transferred the money, and you're good. You know, you change the behavior.
Yeah, and it happens really quickly. I've noticed it with my clients. Like they'll implement it, and 6 months later they'll be saying we've got cash for this and cash for that, and like they've got an abundance of cash, which changes the whole way you operate your business. And instead of being this is the way we've always done it, now you get the chance to go, okay, I can do something different here. I don't have to do it the same way anymore because I've actually got the cash to change. You know, it is profound the change that happens when you have money, and like in a business when you have ample money. And it's a beautiful thing to see. Like I love seeing it in clients where they actually have stockpiles of cash. And like it's amazing. Like we learn about budgeting, we learn about all these things at school, but I would love to know, you know, if it was a number out of 100, I would say 99% of people are living week to week and, you know, in their businesses, and their businesses aren't paying themselves or not paying themselves enough. And it's really a disaster. Like it really is it is a human disaster that people don't pay themselves, because if they did, everything would be better.
So we can talk about this from the mathematical side. You know, I'm a kind of a math guy,
Sure.
right? You can apply this from the 80-20 principle, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we realize that, you know, 80% of the profit comes from 20% of our effort, 20% of our clients, right? And so it actually turns out that the companies and the businesses and the individuals that are self-sustaining are the 20% of the 20%. So the 4% are the ones that are self-sustaining. And this has been this way since the 1930s. And it was discovered with a economic study that was done by the Prudential Life Insurance Company, because they wanted to show people that you're not going to be able to do this on your own. You need to have a whole life annuity policy to make sure you have enough money to retire at your retirement age. And then if you die before it or die early, then you're going to protect your family, because there's not going to be any money. 96% of the people are, you know, basically hand to mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's an incredible number. Like, as I was saying, like this is really a human problem. Like this is a problem across the globe that if it was fixed, would change everything as we know it.
Well, you know, I'm not sure. I think
but one second, like you think if that 96% of people, like that 4% of people actually pay themselves and live well. Like if you have money, you live well. If say the 44% and that was 50-50, then 50% of people on the globe would be living better. And sure, they might spend it on drugs, they might spend it on alcohol, they might spend it on, weekends with who knows in Vegas. That money could go to bad things, but in general, I think that it would help humanity massively. In just learning that one skill, like just as a system, just to be able to go, okay, everything I earn, I'm setting aside this much, and that's my kitty, and that grows each quarter.
I think that that's a fair course of thinking.
If we're talking about just businesses, not people individually, but businesses.
It might as well be people. It's the same thing.
Yeah, same.
So essentially, I look at things like the 80-20 principle, which is
Hmm.
so powerful,
Yep.
as one of nature's ways of keeping things balanced. Because what I've found is that the value of 80%, whatever the average is of whatever you're doing at that 80% of income, 80% of consumption, 80% of purchasing, the average of that 80% is 1x. So let's say that 1x is $10,000 a year. The value of the top 20% is 4 to 5 times the value of the lower 80. So that means the value of consumption, the value of production, the value of savings, the value of everything is 4,000 to 5,000. It's a 1 to 5 ratio, just like 20 is to 80 is a 1 to 4 ratio, 1 to 5 ratio in that range. It's the same thing when you get into the 20%. It is a 1/4 to 4 times greater value of 80%. So the inverse relation is the value of the work that they're doing and the value of the profit is 4 times the value of the lower amount. Now, if you take the top 4%, now it's 20% of the 20%, and that value is 4 to 5 times the value of the lower 80, the lower 20%, right? So now 4 times 4 is 16 and 5 times 5 is 25. So the value of the 4% is 16 to 25 times the value of just the 20%. So the mathematical relationship exists and
Yeah.
it continues as a fractal. This is why the 1% and the fraction of the 1% have all the money. If you do the math on it, mathematically, the top 1% control 51% of the wealth worldwide. In reality, it's even less than that. Even less than 1% control 51%.
This is the question I want to ask. In looking at that math, if everyone on the planet implemented profit first, let's just go wildly off the scale here. If everyone on the planet implemented profit first, do you think that 80-20 rule would still exist?
Yes. And the reason it would still exist is because the world could not support the associated consumption that the wealth would bring. And as a result, because the goods of the world are less, what would happen is what we're seeing right now.
But would they even out over time? Would it change everything?
I don't think so. Because
Maybe take some time.
The definition of inflation, which is devaluing your money, is too much money chasing too few goods and services. So if the world cannot support the consumption of resources with all this extra money floating around, what happens? The value of those resources goes up. It costs more to get those, to access those. What does it do to the people that have the money? It lowers the purchasing value. So I think it's going to be a self-balancing model because, again, 80-20 is based on the resources. It could be oxygen in a lake. It could be the impact of algae in a lake. What happens when there's an algae bloom, right? The algae scenario goes out of control. Algae grows at a higher rate. What happens? The oxygen becomes scarcer. And when it becomes scarcer, guess what? The algae dies off. So it becomes a natural, evolutionary cycle that's driven by the mathematics of, it could be 80-20, the principle, it could be any.
So what you're saying, Mark, is there's no hope for the 80%.
Well, yes and no. You can also talk about the level of awareness. So if you become aware of the situation, the only thing that separates the 80 from the 20 is awareness that they can be in the 20. And once you decide that you want to be in the 20, and as a coach, this is our role, is to raise people's awareness, help them to develop their self-esteem, and to give them the tools they need to be successful to move from the unaware that are going with the flow of everybody,
Yeah.
moving up to the aware that are making good, intelligent decisions like profit first.
Yeah. Yeah. Just coming back to our title, as far as this is the way we've always done it. What, like, and I've met people that earn millions of dollars and have nothing in the bank. I've met people that earn, $20,000 a year and they have savings. And, without it wanting to, sound too obvious, is it like, what is it what's the first thing people can do to really get out of their money problem? I know, like, I'm just saying it could be as simple as reading Profit First, like buying Profit First and reading it. But what's a simple next step for someone to do? Like you said earlier in the call that, you've had a lot of people coming to you and showing you their finances. And what are you recommending as a first step for those people?
Well, the very first step is to realize that no matter what your situation is, no matter how profitable you are or how unprofitable or how cash poor, right? One thing is to realize that you look at your bank account and there's no money in it. You're broke. You're broke.
Yeah.
Broke is different than poor. Poor is the mindset of scarcity. So the first thing they can do is move from a scarcity to an abundance mindset. And that scarcity perception is, for me to win, you have to lose.
Yeah.
That's the way people think about capitalism. That's not true, but that's the way they portray it. So it's the man. He's going to take my money. He's going to take my hours. He's going to take my job. It's me against them. So it's pushing to hold me down and me pushing back, right? So that is a scarcity or a poor mindset. So shifting from that to one of abundance, and the abundance is the universe has no limit on what can be created, what can be delivered, what can be invented, what we can think of. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about human nature, is that we are inventive individuals. We can create things out of nothing. And entrepreneurs are about creating something out of nothing. So realizing that you are unlimited, and the only limitation is right here between your temples.
I'm going to pull you up there, because it's like, I hear that a lot. Okay, go from scarcity, change your mindset, go to that abundance mindset thinking. What's the first thing they need to do to actually
one bite at a time?
Because it's tough when you're in the grind of it and there's no money, and that you're out there hustling for clients, and there's like, you're not finding it. What are you doing?
So this is really, really, really simple. But if you were really a working man and you're, in a job where you're being paid hours for dollars, the simplest thing you can do every day when you come home, there's a jar by the door. If you've got any loose change in your pocket, you put it in the jar every single day. And you keep track with a little tab and cross out a day on the calendar when you put money in, even if it was only 1 cent, right? And get in the habit of taking whatever loose change you have and put it in that jar. And that changes your thinking to realize that the money was there. I really have a decision-making choice. One choice is to spend, and the other choice is to save. And the behavioral change with Profit First is to move from an expense or spending mode to a saving mode.
And you've hit on a super important point, because most people are only looking at the spending. They're only looking at expenses. They're only looking at what I need to spend. They're only looking at the zero in the bank account. They're only looking at how little sales they made this week, instead of focusing on the other. And
think about this, James. Just what you said. What are they looking at? What are they looking at?
They're looking at the lack.
Exactly. So if your focus is the lack, where do you think you're going to end up?
In lack. It's
You trapped yourself.
yeah, it is a it's it's a simple mind shift to make, and yet it's probably one of the most difficult ones to make as well.
So
Like I teach my clients to look at what's working and amplify that, and try to stay, yeah, there's going to be fires that come, that blaze up and smoke, and all that sort of stuff. And there's things you have to tackle, but you've got to be like in a constant awareness of what's working and how to multiply that. How much extra did we make this month? How many more sales did we make this month? Like, how much extra time, are my workers working this month trying to help me? Like all these little things that are positives versus looking at all those lack kind of topics, which is so easy to look at because it becomes, and like you say, it becomes self-fulfilling. When you start down that train of looking at all the lack, luckily I've been a fairly optimistic person, so I try, like, I get caught in it occasionally too, but I know when to pull myself out of that and go, okay, I need to just realign my vision really and go, okay, what am I looking at?
So I did this little game. We've talked about how I walk to work every day, home every day. And during the summer, during COVID, we had very bad fires here, like they have in Australia sometimes. Very, very dark. The air quality was horrible. I really shouldn't have been walking. We were in the hazardous zone. And I'm thinking, this is like the end of the world kind of thing. I mean, everything's on fire around us. The economy is collapsing.
Yeah.
So just step back and look at this picture. And is this the picture that I want to be in?
Yeah.
And I said, no. And so I said, if the universe is truly unlimited, then it's going to send me some signals. And it's going to send me the signals by making money appear in my life that's unexpected. That was the premise. Yeah. And I said, so how can I test this premise? And so I said, okay, let's just do this. It doesn't matter how much money there is. It could be a penny, or it could be a dime, or it could be $1 or whatever. And for a period of about a month and a half, my focus during my walk to work, as I was listening to audiobooks, was to look at the ground. And as I looked at the ground, I found pennies and quarters. One day I found $1. One day I found 4 quarters in a period of 20 feet. Now,
it's funny. I do the same thing. I walk most mornings, pretty much every morning here. And I've done the same thing at different times. I've gone, okay, this month I'm going to focus on money. I'm going to focus, like, it's everywhere around me. It's on the ground. It's everywhere I go. And I've done the same thing. It turns up everywhere because you have a focus on it. And it's funny, like, it sounds very woo-woo and all that sort of stuff, but where your focus is, where you measure, as we said earlier, what you're measuring shows up.
It improves. What you measure improves.
And same sort of thing. I was finding money, and like, it's quite amazing how much money's lying around.
Oh, it's beyond amazing how much money is laying around.
Yeah.
My father was very secretive about money. He was from that old school world. He was a civil servant, basically. He came through the Depression, so he saved a lot, but he never talked about what he was saving. And when he died, I was the executor of the estate, and he was a pack rat. He saved everything. And in the process of going through all of his papers, I found an envelope. And in that envelope were several tens of thousands of dollars that nobody knew about. And it was all stacks of $100 bills. I thought, he never said a word. He never gave a clue to anyone. If it had been anybody that had come in, they would have taken that stuff and thrown it away, because it was just papers it was in a drawer with no particular order. buried under a bunch of junk.
Yeah.
So it's like situations like that. And it's like we become limiting to ourselves. So it's like if I'm looking for money and I'm finding quarters, why isn't that I'm looking for money and not finding thousands of dollars instead of quarters? And again, that's awareness. We raise our focus to look for what our intention is.
And it's funny, it's because it comes back to, the way we've always done things. Are we focused on the lack, or are we focused on what could be positive? And it's, it doesn't matter what topic you look at, if every so, and I haven't done this for a long time actually, because I'm quite happy with the car that I drive, but every so often, probably about every 5 years, 3 to 5 years, I'll go, okay, it's time for a new car. And my radar will go up and I'll spot a car that I like, and I end up getting that car. Now, I'm really happy with the car that I've got, so I haven't done that for a little while, but it's interesting how you can test yourself and even for a month or two, change your focus onto something specifically and see how much that turns up. And yeah, it's the reticular activating system and all that sort of stuff, and woo-woo and all that sort of stuff, but test yourself. And it's pretty amazing how much control you have over your own life. And this is the thing. Everyone goes, we've done this. This is the way we've always done things. And that's almost I'm going to blame this on everyone else kind of comment.
Yeah, victim. You're a victim.
Yeah. Instead of going, okay, I've got a chance to choose something different. And I'm a big advocate, a big fighter for choice. Everyone has choice. It doesn't matter what situation you're in. I don't care where you're from, what skills you have, whatever, how limited you are or how much you have, you always have a choice.
Well, and not only choice, but it's also the accountability and the responsibility of that choice. If we look at society as a whole right now, there's a huge disconnect between action and accountability, action and responsibility for what's happening.
Yeah.
If we look at this concept of abundance in the universe and money from nothing, money from nowhere, right? I'm struck all the time by the number of people that buy lottery tickets. And we look at that and say, the chances are like 300 million to 1. But last week here in the States, the lottery amount was $550 million and one person won it. So if you don't play, you can't win.
Yeah.
So if you don't make a choice of taking action, which is buying that one ticket, no matter how small that ticket is, if you don't have a ticket, you can't win. But if you take an action, then you have a chance of winning. You've improved yourself from 0 to something slightly better than 0. But the important thing is that when you begin to associate the action with a choice, and the choice had a purpose, which was to gain a better financial position, then it just is a matter of ratcheting it down a little bit and a little bit and a little bit until you get things that you can say, here's a small risk, here's an investment of time or money, and that gives me a bigger return. And now you've broken the cycle of I'm waiting for something to happen. It's the people that say, when my ship comes in, man, I can't wait for my ship to come in. Well, you know what? You're going to be a skeleton on the wharf because you won't recognize the ship when it does come in.
It's, that made me think, when I have clients implement Profit First, and when I see Profit First implemented, change is really quick. Like the system works. And it's very simple. If you haven't read the book, read the book. But it's very simple, implements very easily. The change is almost immediate. Within a month or two, you can tell, okay, there's enough money, I can pay myself for the first time. Like all these different things, you start to feel that abundance coming. The big problem I see is in people not like they learn the skill, they prove the skill to themselves, and they repeat it, and they repeat it, and then they forget about it and they go back to old ways. And being able to stay the course and just like continuing to implement the system. You know, I talk with my clients a little bit about boring systems. You know, it's the boring systems that make you money. They're not hard, they're not fancy, they don't light the sky up, there's no fireworks when you implement them.
Slow and steady.
But yeah, staying the course on the simple things. Yeah, and I've had friends that are, you know, really super wealthy, like they've built big businesses, and they say the same things. It's the boring stuff that makes you the money. And it's the, you know, the boring stuff, like, this is the thing. Profit First, I don't actually see as boring. I see it as kind of exciting because it does make such a difference. But yet it's a simple, boring system, really. And, you know, I don't want to turn anyone off by saying it's boring, but, you know, as I said, I find it exciting. But the thing is, it's something you have to implement and then continue to implement month after month after month after month after month forever.
So 40 years ago, I created this business model that has proven 100% accurate over 40 years in every circumstance. And I call it the CPR system. C stands for consistency. The P stands for predictable, and the R stands for repeatable. So if something is consistent, predictable, and repeatable, you will absolutely be successful.
Yep.
And as a result, you don't have to have the best product or be the market leader or anything. You can have a very mediocre product and a mediocre delivery of that product, but as long as it's consistent and predictable and repeatable, there's going to be a segment of society that will say, I'm going to buy this because I know what it is, I can count on it, I know what the result is, and I know what it's going to be like every time I come back. Yep. And I always use the example of McDonald's as a multi-billion-dollar company that's built on CPR with a mediocre product.
Yep. Yep. And, you know, Profit First as a system is that, you know, consistent, predictable, repeatable. And, you know, it's quite funny how simple it is. Like when people go, okay, I've got to fix my finances, they essentially turn their head and, oh my God, I don't want to even open the books. But when you look at it from a completely different perspective, which Profit First makes you do, it shifts your mind around, oh, finances aren't actually that hard. And it gives you
yourself.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's a story you've told yourself, and you've proven it to yourself by becoming poor and not learning about finances. Now's the time to actually change and implement a different system and learn something new. You know, as a skill, it's very simple to learn, very easy to implement. You know, it really is a bit of a lifesaver, really. And as far as people going, okay, this is the way we've always done it, and our finances are, you know, I hear people say, oh, our finances will never get better. Oh, I'll never earn more than my 5 closest friends. Oh, the business won't ever grow. It's like, well, if you keep saying that stuff to yourself, then that's true, and it becomes true.
Self-fulfilling. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're willing to actually take a different look at things and implement things like, you know, simple systems that actually, you know, they've been proven, they repeat themselves, they're predictable, you know, like it's like, that's why, you know, I say success is a process, and it really is simple, but we get in the way.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so many things along the way. And I was going to say earlier, there's something that a good friend of ours said to me and said to a group of us one time in a coaching environment. And this person said, consider where you are in your business right now. Everything around you, the people, the market, your product, your offer, your advertising, everything. Consider that and realize that where you are right now is exactly where you deserve to be. And that was like, wow, that really hit home, because I was blaming all these other people and all these other circumstances on it. And I realized I can blame someone and use that as an excuse, or I can say, what do I need to do to change this and move forward? And the people that are stuck in the 80% are the ones that are looking for a reason why they're there, as opposed to say, I need a reason to get out of this place into a better place. And I think that's what drives entrepreneurs. And to the entrepreneurs' challenging part is they want to solve problems, and they're driven by the adrenaline of solving that problem and getting the result. And they're absolutely bored out of their skin by doing something that is consistent, predictable, and repeatable over and over. I've always said that, you know, if I were to ever get convicted of some crime, the worst punishment that they could punish me with would be to sentence me to a rubber band factory or a paperclip factory or someplace that makes screws, you know, by the million. And that's all they do is make these things over and over. That would, I would die in a month in that situation.
I'm exactly the same.
So that's our weakness. That's our weakness.
Yeah. I think we might wrap it up there today, Mark.
Good call today. A lot of really good discussion.
You know, for people out there that are struggling with money in their business, I urge you all to go out and buy the book Profit First, read it, implement it, practice it for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, and just see where you are.
So I want to close with this, and I want to give a shameless plug to another Profit First professional that's in 2 of my mastermind groups, Profit First Masterminds, and that's Susan Mariga. And Susan Mariga just published Profit First for Minority-Owned Businesses. And the whole idea of this is to show minority-owned businesses that they can liberate themselves from society. And the thing that is staggering out of this is it has become so popular, it just launched last week, that it was #1 on all of Amazon, not just a category.
Oh,
so
wow.
This is huge. This is huge. And it's unexpected, but not, because Susan has worked so hard. She is a brilliant CPA and has worked so diligently over the last couple of years to get this book done. And Mike Michalowicz wrote the forward to it. And it's fantastic. And from a Profit First standpoint, if you feel like you're in the minority, if you feel like you're in a situation where you cannot compete because there's big dog players, get Profit First and get Profit First for minority-owned businesses, and start looking at your business as a minority-owned business, and take Suzanne's comments to heart.
Wow, interesting. Fantastic. That's great. That's fantastic. All right. Well,
I haven't even read it yet.
Well, we will leave it there. But as always, great chatting, Mark, and we will catch everyone on the flip side. As I was saying, if you are struggling with numbers in your business, take a look at Profit First. Well worth a read. All right.
Enjoy that first day of winter.
Will do. Cheers, Mark.
Bye. Cheers.